specific type of hair gel, sir, Marie said. If we kept it on hand, it would just collect dust. After all, you have a very unique dog. And she thought, but did not dare say, not all people think their dogs require specialized hair gel. The man's scowl deepened. For a moment, Marie was 15 years old again, with Principal Davis looming over her. Of course, it had always been easy to explain to Principal Davis why she was in his office again. It wasn't quite as easy to explain to a wealthy and pretty rich man why Pumped Paws did not carry the specific dog hair gel he was looking for. He was not the sort of a man who understood the world, that it did not rotate around him. It was unheard of Pumped Paws, and I assume Pumped Paws was the pet saloon where she worked, did not cater specifically to his dog. Even the dog seemed to be frowning at Mary. When she met Dog's eyes, it looked away as if it could not be bothered with someone so trivial. I'm sorry, sir, Mary told him, but they don't make hair of the gel that is specific for only your dog. The only one we can get that would benefit your pet is very hard to find and quite expensive. I find that quite preposterous. Mary thought that it was preposterous that a grown man would want hair gel for a dog. She did not say this, of course. Instead, she gave a sympathetic frown that the management of Pumped Paws had actually had them rehearsed during training. Well, as you know, we are a spa for pets, not a pet store. It's why we don't carry your specific brand. If you like, we can order it. I can jolly well order it myself at home. But you won't, she thought. Ordering things online is something as common as two. I understand, sir, but if you, Daisy May, has an appointment next Monday, I fully expect you to have the gel I have specifically requested for her grooming, or you're gonna lose me as a client. I'll make sure we have it for you, sir. He said good day. He spat out the word good like he just bitten into something sour. Daisy May and her tall mustached owner stormed to the doors. As they left, Daisy May looked over her owner's shoulder and yapped to make sure they had gotten their point across. And boy, they had. The point, as Mary saw it, was that she sometimes forgot just how much she hated the job. Slightly jolted from the encounter with this man of her high school principal's nightmare, Mary walked to the back of Pumped Paws grooming salon, where there was an enormous window where clients could look through to see their cherished bundle of fur as they were groomed. Currently, there was only a single dog being groomed, a Labradoodle that was being groomed by Mary's friend Cara. Cara saw Mary looking in through the window and gave her a thumbs up. She then frowned, lifted the dog's tail, and started trimming she caught a faint reflection of herself in the mirror. She was actually happy with how she looked today. Her makeup wasn't overdone. Her shoulder-length brown hair looked messy cute, and she looked well rested. Still, no matter how good she looked, there was no way to hide the fact that she was 39 years old, working at a pet salon that catered to the rich and narcissistic. It was a far cry from her dreams of one day opening up a bed and breakfast somewhere on the coast of Maine. It was a dream influenced by her great aunt June, one of her more eccentric family members. Or rather, it had been influenced by great aunt June's strange and grand beachside home. Whatever the inspiration, it was a dream that had seemed more and more ridiculous as Marie got old. Not that it really mattered, because life had led her here. She had tried to stay on the rails to follow a career path she only sort of wanted, and that path had dumped her off on the side of the road, right here at this salon bumped pause. That bumpy detour had come during college, 3 semesters away from graduating. It involved a terrible dating relationship and then the unexpected death of her father. Before she knew it, veterinary school and the even fainter dream of opening that bed and breakfast all became daunting pipe dreams. Marie! And now you can hear my cat. He's sleeping right next to me. But he's shy. He's camera shy. Okay. Marie. The sound of her boss's voice made her heart go cold. Marie turned around, putting on her best smile to face Deandra Livingston. While pretty, the woman also resembled one of those motherly villains from Disney movie. She had some plastic surgery done, but it was good plastic surgery, so it was almost impossible to tell. Deandra had 5 children, but her breasts were still up nice and high where they were supposed to be, so Marie was pretty sure that she had some work done there as well. Yes, Deandra. Can't you find something else to do besides watching Kara work? Yes, we have 9 appointments coming in between noon and 3 o'clock. Before they arrive, I need you to make sure the ones that I left by their owners don't have to wait to eat. And please, this time make sure to separate the vegetarian from normal. I'm still getting an earful from Mrs. Thornton because her Cocker Spaniel's breath smelled like fish for a week. Of course. And did you finish up with the bows for Precious? Miss Hyde will be here soon to pick her up. Yes, she's all done and waiting. Good, Deandra snapped before heading off elsewhere. Marie struggled to keep the smile on her face as she left the grooming area and headed into spa rooms. She spent the next hour preparing the grooming stations she'd be using. She felt a special sort of defeat when she scrubbed the mirrors at the stations. I'm scrubbing mirrors so dogs that are worth more than my car can admire themselves, while I'll clip their nails and untackle their fur. How exactly did it come to this? She knew the answers, but they were all rather depressing and sad, and sad enough, as it was, making sure there were no streaks on the mirrors. Following this cleaning, she set out the dishes and mats for the animal waiting area. She portioned out the food as if she were making a smoothie for a world-class athlete rather than four-legged creature that sniffed and licked its own backside. Done with this, she headed back to the front of the store. Right away, she saw a rather anguished-looking woman pacing back and forth along the front waiting area to make sure she was seen. "Hello, excuse me," this woman called. As Marie neared the woman, she saw that it was Mrs. Gloria Hyde. She was dressed in a tight pink dress, accented by black sunglasses, even though it was an overcast day. She was a regular to Pumped Paws. She and her little yoga Pomeranian mix, a little ball of spastic energy named Precious. Mrs. Hyde was a 30-year-old socialite who had been born with a silver spoon in her mouth, and likely the rest of the silverware set as well. "Hello, Mrs. Hyde. What can I do for you?" "I've been standing here for 5 minutes waiting for someone to help me," said Mrs. Hyde in a snooty tone. "Is my Precious ready?" Marie said she is indeed. She's been ready for an hour and she's currently enjoying herself in one of our pumped pads. She hated saying this. A so-called pumped pad was really just a small kennel that was decorated to look like a little luxurious room for dogs. Once, a client had complained because the pumped pads did not come with a television. Their bull mastiff was apparently a huge fan of Animal Planet shows, and the client was furious that such an extravagance had been robbed from their pet. Though that had been a crazy complaint, Mrs. Hyde and Precious were equally terrible. Of all the dogs Mary groomed, and there was a lot, Precious was the absolute worst. The sad part of it was that Precious was actually a beautiful dog, but Mrs. Hyde insisted that Precious be done up in a way that would make just about anyone who passed the dog want to punt it. Mary led Mrs. Hyde to the pumped pad currently occupied by Precious. There were bows and ribbons covering just about every inch of the dog's head. She looked like some sort of a scroll that needed to be unbound. Her hair were combed back to allow the pink ribbons to sit atop her head like some weird antennae. The bows were smaller than the sort that would go in a baby's girl's hair, but cost about 5 times as much. They were pulled back so tightly per Mrs. Hyde's instructions that the poor thing's eyes were about to pop right out of her head. Also, it was quite clear the poor dog just hated them. Apparently, so did Mrs. Hyde. And what is this miserable mess supposed to be? Your dog, Marie thought. "What do you mean?" Marie asked. "Well, this is clearly not what I asked for." Mrs. Hyde leaned down to pick up Precious. The dog jumped into her owner's arms and instantly started kneading against her, trying to get the ridiculous paws off. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Hyde, but this is exactly what you asked for. If you like, I can get the groom in order and..." "Do you think I'm an idiot? I clearly said I wanted the ribbon to be intertwined wine in the order of pink, magenta, teal, white, then lavender. You have braided in the order of pink, teal, magenta, white, and lavender. Do you not know the colors? Marie did indeed see the mistake, but found it hard to be so aggrieved as Mrs. Hyde's over the matter. Yes, ma'am, I can correct that if you'll just give me about 20 minutes. Well, I don't have 20 minutes. I'm a busy woman. Mrs. Hyde was practically screaming now. Not to be outdone, Precious joined in, yapping away. The dog seemed to notice that they had attracted the attention of other 4 clients sitting in the waiting area. This only spurred them on even more, dog and owner alike. I have spent more money than I care to even think of in this place. If you can pay attention to a simple color scheme. In all of her barking and yapping, one of Precious' bows fell off. It went flying across the room before landing at the feet of a husky puppy that had just been brought in. It peed on the floor, a little of this commotion. To make things worse, Mary saw Deandra storming across the store. Mrs. Hyde, what can I do for you to remedy the situation? Oh, well, I suggest hiring someone competent, someone that knows their colors. Marie said, I assure you, I know my colors. Do you? Do you really? Precious and her owner yapped in tandem, like a weird chorus. The dog wasn't even barking at Mary, though. The little mutt was just barking to add to the noise. Mary couldn't help but wonder if Mrs. Hyde had trained her to do this very thing. Marie pleaded, Mrs. Hyde, it was just a simple mistake. Mrs. Hyde and Deandra both looked at her as if she had lost her mind. Deandra then looked at Mrs. Hyde, her eyes swarming with sympathy. I promise you, we will make this right. The price of the entire job will come directly out of Marie's pay. Mrs. Hyde nodded, satisfied with the solution. That sounds very reasonable. You may want to look over your shoulder to make sure she gets the colors right. Something inside of Marie rose up in that moment. She was usually very well-mannered and not confrontational. She rarely lost her temper, and when she did, it was in almost childish way. It had only occurred once in recent memory, an unfortunate incident in one of the Patriots game with her boyfriend. She recalled that moment now, but the words were already on her tongue, prying her lips apart. She said, again, I know my colors. I've also worked with many dogs, some even more spoiled and stupid than yours, so I know them too, and anyone can tell that your dog loves those ribbons and bows. You can't talk to him. Look at that poor thing. She hates them, and I don't blame her. They look simply awful. I know my dog, don't you tell me. Marie was well aware of the words coming out of her mouth. She was also aware of her volume. Everyone in the store heard her. She could not stop the words from coming out. The only other noise in the place was a low whine coming from Precious' throat. Marie, Deandra said. Oh, and you, well, I'll make it very easy on you, Deandra. Some part of her brain told her to shut up, but she kept thinking of those dreams in college, and even before college. A vet, a bed and breakfast owner. A job at Pumped Paws was so far removed from Ah, Deandra, with one less worker, you might actually have to spend some time here and get to know those awful people. Marie was a little scared because she could not afford not to have a job. Hello, my boy. Ah, he's hiding his nose. Marie has been putting up with this nonsense for over a year. She simply had enough. She could not stop but just smile. Then, as if it were the worst insult of all, Marie reached out and scratched Precious under her chin. And the dog waggled its tail. Mrs. Hyde cringed. Marie headed straight to the door, giving a little wave to everyone who was staring. On her way out, she purposefully reached down and picked up Precious' discarded bow. She knew it was an immature thing to do, but she clammed it down in her hair. Someone behind her gasped. She hoped it was Mrs. Hyde. Marie smiled all the way to her car. Then, when she cranked the engine to life, her smile faltered. I just quit my job. What was I thinking? She had no backup waiting, and her resume was lackluster at best. She had never completed college and had no real skills aside from caring for dogs and cracking a good joke here and there. She tried to reclaim the relief and freedom she felt inside pampered paws when she had left, but it seemed to have gone the way Precious' little bow gone. She rested her head against the steering wheel. At least she had a boyfriend to go to, someone to complain to cry on his shoulder, someone to encourage her and tell her everything would be okay. It was then that she noticed Precious' bow still in her hair. She took it off and tossed it into the back seat. It felt very much like tossing that ridiculous job aside, as well as any real financial stability. It all sank in her in that moment, leaving her with just one question. What was she going to do? Right, that's end of part 1. You guys okay? You got any drinks? Do you need a drink? If not, I'll carry on. If you do need to drink or, use the bathroom or just, assemble yourselves in kind of more relaxing position, please do. Please pause the video. Okay, I'll carry on. So, Chapter 2. Marie got home about 5:15 and instantly popped open the bottle of Cabernet sitting on her kitchen counter. She poured herself a tall glass and sat on the couch. After taking the first large sip, she texted Chris, then asked if he was available to come over. She honestly wasn't expecting him to accept. Chris had been drowning in work lately, but because he loved his job, he didn't mind drowning. Oh man, how awesome it must be to love your job, she thought. She was pretty sure Chris knew how deeply she cared about him. It was scary to her because she had only ever been in love one other time and ended badly. So now, to be dating a man whom she strongly believed might be the one, and God, how she hated that term, it was a little terrifying. Still, there were moments when they were together where she felt like a smitten high school freshman. She wondered if that was mainly because Chris thought he was pushing 40 and showing it. He had a wildly immature streak. He played Fortnite all the time and went to comic book conventions. She supposed it made him good at his job, a game designer and programmer for several different mobile game companies. He had been the one constant anchor in her life over the past year, aside from her job. Before Pam would pause, she'd spent several years as a vet assistant, and he'd been there to clean too when they had fallen through. He was also very good as a laugh, was an extremely good kisser, and genuinely seemed to enjoy trying to make her happy. She was surprised when Chris responded to her text right away. He even used a few emojis and exclamation marks, which was quite a rarity. Apparently he was in a good mood, which meant he would have a good day at work today. As she waited for Chris to arrive, Marie remained on the couch with her wine and tried not to fixate on one single thing she would miss about her job. Plain and simple, it was the money. Honestly, when Deandra had paid her, it wasn't very much. It was barely above minimum wage. But the tips were often ridiculous. Yet there was a fair share of Tywoods, and there were also a few who enjoyed throwing their money around, trying to remind the rest of the world that they were the superior ones. Even after Deandra got her 20% from every tip, Mary had taken home a decent chunk of cash every other week. Lucky girl. But now that was gone. She tried not to be terrified about it, but the fear seemed to grow with every minute. She went into the kitchen and tried to scrounge up something for dinner, something she could make quickly. Chris had a weird work schedule and as such a hectic meal schedule, so she never knew when he was hungry. Going with a safe standby, Marie boiled some water for pasta and poured some sauce into a pan. She had it all going while waiting for Chris to show up, scrolling through Facebook as she stood by the counter. She would stir the pasta, sip her wine and scroll. Stir, sip, scroll, repeat. She was only partly paying attention to the status updates and memes she saw. Her mind was still on what she had done today. She was glad to get rid of the job, knowing she would never have to see DeAndre again. It was enough as a reward. She also would never have to listen to the clients talk about how long to the centimeter their dog's ear hair should be. Plus, the scary sort of future she was facing allowed her to reflect back on the dream she'd pretty much packed away for good. She had wanted to own and operate a bed and breakfast since the age of 7. She had turned her bedroom into Marie Fortune's big bright bed and breakfast. She welcomed her parents and her sister to stay over, pampering them with fake plastic food and pretend pots of tea, giving them extensive tours of 4 corners of her bedroom and the closet. She had left little hand-printed suggestion cards for her guests. But as she got older and understood the costs and the time involved in a dream like that, her parents had urged her to look into something more promising. They pointed out that she had always had a way with animals and suggested veterinary school. was not in love with the idea. She figured it was a career that would make her happy. Even when she started college, the original dream had remained. Now, though, the closest she got to her dream was watching those home renovation shows on TV. What on earth happened to me? Before she could traipse down the depressing little road, there was a knock at her door. She answered at once and wrapped her arms around boyfriend Chris. As he entered, they kissed lingeringly for a moment. When she broke it, Chris looked at her with a rather surprised expression. "And hello to you too," he said. "Sorry, it's just, oh boy. It's been quite a day. Never apologize for jumping me that moment I come to the door. As a matter of fact, if you want, you might as well keep going." He nodded beyond the living room and the kitchen area toward the bedroom. It was kinda hard to say no. He was looking exceptionally good today. She assumed he had a meeting with an investor because his hair was actually not a mess, and he was wearing a button down and khakis, as opposed to his usual old jeans and a long-sleeved t-shirt. She said, "No time, I just prepared a very intricate dinner." Chris peered into the kitchen and saw the prepared spaghetti. No man should ever turn down spaghetti. He kissed her on her brow and added, "Bad day, huh?" Suddenly she wasn't so sure about telling him about what she had done. What was he gonna think? Had she been rash? Maybe a little mature? Pretty rough, yes. Well, that stinks. It wasn't a very deep or meaningful response for a 36-year-old, but Chris seemed perpetually tired. He hardly ever slept, and on a few occasions he would sleep over at Marie's place. The only things she would really have learned about him was that he snored incredibly loud, and in the mornings, when he was done eating the cereal, he left the bowl with milk still in it on the side of the sink, like a barbarian. Yes, it does stink. Well, you want to eat and tell me about it? Yeah, sure. They piled up their plates and ate at the small table in a dining area between the living room and the kitchen. "Before we get into my own private slice of hell, how was your day?" she asked. "It was alright. Been working from home for 3 weeks now, so that's pretty sweet." Again, not the sort of vocabulary she expected from the man of his age. Writing and building mobile games where people blew up cars or ran after gold coins in an endless loop had likely started to rub off in all kind of areas of his life. She asked, "What game are you working on right now?" As usual, he went deep into the details of what he was currently doing. He loved his job. The passion with which he talked about it was one of the things Mary loved about him. When he was done, he asked about her day, but it almost seemed like he was running out on autopilot. She replied, "Today was a weird one for me. Out of nowhere, I started thinking about when I was a kid and all the things I wanted to do, you know. Did I ever tell you about Marie, big, bright bed and breakfast? That was my dream." "I thought you wanted to be a vet." "That was the grown-up dream. The dream my parents sort of steered me toward. The bed and breakfast thing was the pipe dream from childhood. Oh God, Chris, I quit my job today." Instead, he said, "Good for you. That place sucks." Again, she sometimes wished he didn't talk like a frat boy. Sensing that he wasn't going to have much to say, she went on. "I know I should be scared, and I am, but just not much." Chris said, "Yeah, sure." He was slurping up some spaghetti and pulling his phone toward him. "Well, like I was saying, it made me think about my old dreams. And that got me thinking about my dad and losing him, which I guess was the start of letting go of those dreams. But I can't blame my family, you know. Boo-hoo. My dad died and my mom mysteriously disappeared a few years before that. I had to leave college to pick up the ruins of my dad's business, Crimea River, right?" He nodded, still cramming down spaghetti. He looked very distracted, and worst of all, maybe like he didn't really want to be there. "Chris, what? Are you even listening?" "Of course, His phone vibrated as a text came in. He slid the phone over to him and started typing a reply. This, she assumed, was work-related. She had only ever seen this level of distraction once before. She hadn't liked it then, and it did not paint a pretty picture of the rest of the night. The little spike of anger that went through her felt like poison, but it was a good poison, like drinking a Red Bull of, I don't know, getting excited at the idea of another Marvel movie. The anger was so raging, multi-tentacled monster grabbing every nerve inside of her. She wasn't asking for a deep conversation, she just needed his ear, the attention of the man she loved. She went on. "So, today, this golden retriever showed me this video where he'd beaten Ninja at Fortnite." Chris finally looked up. His eyebrows were arched and he looked quite confused. "What did you say?" "Exactly." Marie took her plate to the sink and then refilled her wine. "Marie, what's wrong?" "I just sat there talking to you for about 3 minutes, and you didn't even bother to look at me from your phone until I said something stupid about Fortnite." "Well, yeah, because you never talk about Fortnite." "Yes, I know. I'm 39 years old. Why would I?" He sighed, gave a quite heavy look, and he got to his feet. "You know, I gotta go to the bathroom." You know what?" she called out as he went down the hallway to the toilet. "I wouldn't even have let you visit Marie's big bed and breakfast." "The what?" he called back. "The toast was a little stale, but the tea always tasted like flowers." "Marie, what you say? Are you okay? If you need, you know what, just go to the bathroom already." The quiet closing of a bathroom door a few seconds later signified that he was doing just that. Marie let out a single tear and wiped it away. Before she had time to reconsider her odd behavior, his phone buzzed again. She didn't even hesitate when she picked it up. She saw the beginning of the message on his locked screen. The message was not from a saved contact, but the area code was local. What Marie could see read, "Not going to stay up all night, but I'll leave the door unlocked for you." That was all the preview would allow her to see. It was enough though. The heartbreak that quickly followed this urge swept her up. Unable to resist, Marie unlocked Chris's phone. messages were short, but they cut across a very explicit and well-detailed story. She was still reading through when Chris returned to the table. Seeing what she was doing, he didn't bother to sit back down. Marie looked up at him and used every bit of her willpower and inner strength not to cry. Instead, she tossed the phone over to him, where it clattered on his side of the table. Marie asked, "Who is she? Why are you reading my messages? Why is the woman with a local area code leaving her door unlocked for you tonight? And for that matter, several other nights in the last few weeks." He knew he was caught. She could see it in his face, in the way his eyes seemed to search her apartment for some way out. "Marie, it's nothing serious." "Oh, it sounds like serious something to me. Maybe not emotionally, but certainly physically. Who is it?" "A woman that works for the new gaming company we took on last month." "Were you going to even tell me, or just keep it up?" He carried his plate to the sink, then sized her up. His posture straightened, and he took on the authoritative tone. "You know what? I don't see the big deal." "Excuse me, are you kidding me?" "Marie, times are changing. We are almost 40, and relationships are different today, you know. I don't see the problem. What's wrong with having 2 girlfriends?" "That's the dumbest thing I've heard all day, and believe me, I heard some stupid stuff at work." "But get out, Chris." "Marie, just hear me out." "Oh, I did, and I heard enough. Now get out." There were about a million things she wanted to say, but she let them all go. He was already at the door before she could even think of putting words to all of it. It almost looked as if he wanted to go. When he closed the door, he did so softly. My cat is right. He's right next to me trying to catch my attention so I can play with him. Anyway, but as far as Marie was concerned, it had the same impact as if he would slam it. She stared at the door for a moment, fighting away the tears, and wondered if this wretched day could get any worse. As soon as she thought about it, the phone rang. The number on her cell phone was not the one she recognized. Not even the area code was local. She answered the phone, fully expecting it to be a wrong number. "Hello, boy." Oh my. Yep, nearly got my microphone. Marie answered the phone. "Hello." "Hi, is this Marie Fortune?" It was a male voice, very stern and official sounding. "It is. Miss Fortune, this is Deputy Miles from Winscott County Police." His tone was a bit dry and wavering. It was strange because she knew what sort of calls this usually were, but she had no family in the area. Unless... Her heart sagged for a moment, waiting to get confirmation. "I am so sorry to tell you that your Aunt June had passed away." Okay, now, chapter 3. Marie mentally smacked herself. Less than 30 seconds ago, she had dared to ask if this day could get any worse. Here was the answer. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. "Miss Fortune, are you still there?" this was all she could muster, as thoughts of her great Aunt Jane came crashing through her mind. Aunt Jane had been a very eccentric woman. Marie had heard her first dirty joke from her aunt, had swiped her first drink of alcohol from her aunt. It was actually a sip of whiskey. And in fact, it's been her aunt and her home that instilled the dream of one day opening a bed and breakfast into Marie's head. Her aunt was 98 years old and never stayed in one place for very long. She had been living on the coast of Maine for the last 30 years or so, but frequently traveled to Florida, Puerto Rico, and of all places, Wyoming. She had always been one of Marie's favorite relatives, and they had been rather close during her middle school years. And when her mother split the scene, when Marie was in her teens, great aunt had stepped in as a surrogate mother of all sorts for a while. Despite all of that, Marie had never seen her in almost 2 years. Those 2 years suddenly felt like a very long time. But oddly enough, the days and weeks from childhood spent in Aunt's house felt close enough to reach out and touch. They cascaded before her like some weird kaleidoscope. The insane amount of books, huge seating room, candles, smells of wood polish and the ocean, warm sand between her toes. She could easily recall building sandcastles on the beach behind the house, trying to mimic the spears and columns of the house behind her. And she could still feel the anticipation of riding up that winding driveway to the house, literally bouncing in her seat with excitement. Standing there with a phone in her hand, she could suddenly smell the oolong tea and partially burnt scones her aunt had made whenever she would visit that old house out of the coast of Maine. The memories were broken up by the fact that the police would call her, of all people, simply made no sense. "Miss Fortune, you okay?" The deputy's voice broke her out of a wavering world of memories. Yes, I'm here, just processing. Yes, I can imagine. But how did it happen? Marie asked, fighting back tears for the second time that night. We think she went peacefully in her sleep. An afternoon nap, perhaps. Her neighbor called us and said your aunt had been answering her phone for the last 2 days and didn't answer the door when she came knocking. We just now found her perched in a chair. Who else have you called? Aside from the neighbor, you're the only one. But what about the other family members? I mean, we used to be close, but not recently. But even as she asked about potential family members, she understood perfectly. Given the nature of her family, it made sense she would be the only one to get a call. Your number and email address were on her fridge. The neighbor says she spoke very highly of you, and since we can't find the address book, cell phone, or anything else with contact numbers, you were the only one to call. Yeah, I imagine she didn't have the address book or a cell phone. The thought of her aunt trying to use an iPhone brought a shaky smile to her face. That woman had so many mottos for life, one of which had been, when the angel Lucifer fell from heaven, he landed in technology. rich family that she knows of. Can you think of anyone that might be well suited to take care of the arrangements? Seems like the poor lady was all by herself. Yeah, she was. But that's how she preferred things. She was the very definition of an introvert. And there is no one else you can think of that might know the news. Sadly enough, Maria couldn't. As a matter of fact, Marie's mind seemed fully locked down as a very specific memory of her great aunt sprang to mind. Marie could picture it one perfect summer day, sitting on the back porch and watching the white caps of the waves coming in. Her aunt had come to her and told her that the mother might not be coming back for her, that her mother had disappeared and no one knew where she was. At first, Marie had thought it was just one of the aunt's classic jokes, like the time she convinced Marie that the large squirrel that had once played in the front yard was actually a mutated cat. She had insisted on this and with such passion and confidence that Marie had actually believed the stupid squirrel was a cat for the entire summer. But the grim quality of her aunt's face, as she conveyed this news to a 14-year-old great niece, was something different. The thin line of her lips had told Marie it was the truth. The police had never even found her mother's car. No evidence at all. I'm sorry, Miss Fortune. Sorry, yes, I did it again. Yes, it's okay. Marie shook thoughts of her mother's disappearance away. This was not about her mother. She had wasted enough of her life dwelling on that. This was about her aunt being found dead in her dreamlike home. I will, of course, do whatever is needed to help with the funeral. Wait, she's being buried, right? I'm not sure yet. We'll need to find her last will and testament for all of that. Do you think you might know one way or another? I'd hate to guess. My aunt she was different. There was one point where she wanted to donate her body to science to help morticians to get better at makeup. There was another time she wanted her ashes stuffed into a bottle rocket and blasted out to sea. There was once talk of her being turned into some sort of a compost pot and used to feed several lilac trees somewhere in Virginia. Deputy Miles chuckled. She sounds like one hell of a lady. Yeah, she really was. So, I'll make a note that you can be contacted if help is needed. Yeah, okay, Miss Fortune? Marie said yes, I will be, and the call ended. But really she wasn't sure how truly she was. She felt tears coming on as her heart drooped a bit. She tried to prevent the tears from coming full force. She thought of her aunt's old house, of how the kids back then they thought the place was haunted. She thought of the day she had told her aunt this little rumor and how they started singing the Scooby-Doo theme song. The theme song got stuck in her head and brought on a series of little chuckles that spared her from the tears. She walked to the bedroom and lay down rather hard, the day's events all piling up on her. No job, no Chris, and no great Aunt June. One thing prevented an absolute sobfest, picturing her great aunt's manor and that beautiful coastline. She'd be going back there for sad reasons, but still, she was going back. Right, guys, it's